Hi there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Market, here with a Rogue Audit video in where I will take a topic or a video that I did from the yesteryears and see how well they have aged. In this case, we're going to go back and look at the Challenger decks, both the 2018 and the 2019 Challenger decks, because we do have rotation coming up, and I was one of the very few people as far as YouTubers, as far as just content creators, that absolutely hated the Challenger decks and thought they were an awful idea. Thought they were actually an okay idea, but an awful execution of idea, and how they were just greedy on Wizards of the Coast trying to get that last bit of squeeze of equity out of their rotating sets. So I would say that this is probably my second most heated topic that I've discussed on this channel, only being surpassed by the Ultimate Masters, and we'll do an audit on Ultimate Masters shortly. That's another topic that I do want to revisit now that that is old as well. So 2018, everyone just praised Wizards of the Coast for coming out with the Challenger decks. They had a good reception. In fact, they had such a good reception they had to reprint them, and it was really that second print wave that was disastrous. My claims have always stayed pretty consistent. The reason why I haven't liked these Challenger decks is the inadequate amount of cards that actually survive rotation. So it's clear today what Wizards of the Coast was trying to do. They didn't want to hurt their pack purchases for all the sets that do continue to stick around after rotation, and wanted to get one last little dip of equity from their rotating sets. And the biggest problem I have with these is the lack of cards that had any sort of play in Commander or Modern, and I felt that these would just be dead products 6 months down the road. So that have always been my claim. That is always what I've kind of tried to focus on here of why I didn't like them. It wasn't because I had hordes of these cards or I didn't want new players to get into Standard for cheap, blah, 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 all the accusations that came my way. In fact, I even stated as a local game store, I love these type of products to introduce people to then jump right into F&M. They're easy, quick sales for brand new players to say, okay, this is your best bet if you just want to play right now, if you want to be competitive right now to buy these decks. However, I still maintain that they could have been done better. They could have been done with cards in mind that survive rotation, therefore they can continue to sell a year after they are printed and not have that 4 to 6 month shelf span that they have right now. So that was the claims, and 2019 was a different song and dance with the people, other YouTube content creators and other just content creators, finance people, saying that 2019 was much worse than the previous year because there is even less cards that had any sort of modern playability and just less value overall. And then I still ascertained that that wasn't really the case, that these had the exact same value, that it looks like Wizards of the Coast had about a $100 budget when they created these, and that these were just known, the supply was just known of how big these were going to be, that the market just reacted quicker. And that's why we saw the value of 2019 Challenger decks when they were released not being nearly having the value that 2018 had. But at the time of creation, at the time that they were compiling the deck list and making these decks, it was pretty consistent between 2018 and 2019 that Challenger decks were about $100 worth of cards into these packages. All right, so now we have the history of kind of the videos, and people calling me a greedy speculator, or just not wanting people to be able to compete in Standard that are new players, blah blah blah. Let's just get down to the nitty gritty of where Challenger decks are today. So the first one is first of all, let's go down here. So Saffron Olive wrote this article about the value of Challenger decks. So this is when they were spoiled, I believe. Izzet Drakes was worth about 117 if you pieced it out. Monoraga Aggro was worth about 75. Golgari Midrange was worth about 70, and White Weaning was already dismal at $60, mainly due to the fact that it had already kind of fallen out of place. There weren't a lot of people playing this sort of archetype, and so when they went for the expensive card at the time, which is a $25 History Benalia, and that already halved, that was a good chunk of the change right there that had already been devalued. So that's the problem with trying to create these Challenger decks, is they have to, I think they create them at the first Rotations Pro Tour after that. So in this case, they were made right after the Guilds of Ravnica Pro Tour, and they kind of took the decks that did pretty well there. So that's just the how it has to be done to get these into print in time, even though they'd have even less of a rotation or less of a shelf span if they waited for like Ravnica Allegiance or halfway through Guilds of Ravnica season to create these, then yeah, they'd even have less time before rotation hits into them. So that's kind of the price point. Izzet Drakes mainly was worth a lot because there was an Arclight Phoenix that was going for $40 at the time. as well as the Sulphur Falls, we're going for about $9 a piece. So that was the bulk of the price was in those particular cards. All right, so let's see where they're at today. Today we have a product that is still in high quantities, and we'll prove that in a second. And we have them way below the cost, the MSRP of the decks. So I believe these were supposed to be sold for $30 a piece. So we have, if you were to buy the White Weenie right now, you'd get about $22 worth of cards for $30, which is a net. And that's piecing out everything. If we actually look at the real value of any of the cards that I'd say you could actually unload or trade for stuff, you have possibly Benelish Marshals are good for various, I mean, there's Knights coming out in the new set, so maybe some casual people want to build Knights decks, or maybe I've seen some Knight modern decks that do use Benelish Marshal, like kind of like Aether Vial, Knight type tribal. So this one I do think does have some real world value down the line, and it's basically the one in this creature slot that I would say. You have a lot of commons and uncommons. We have a lot of cards that have been reprinted a bunch, like a Johnny's Pride Myth. They used to legitimately hold like a quarter value. Now Johnny's Pride Myths are about as common as they come. Just had way too many printings in these past few sets. And yep, they're just a dime a dozen now for the Johnny's Pride Myth. And unfortunately, this is a card that just I don't think will ever be able to hold much value, even though it does see modern play in Soul Sisters and has a lot of casual appeal. Just too many reprintings, too soon. For this card. The rest of these cards, they're going to have a hard time ever being worth anything. Like I said, they're all in commons and commons anyway. We look at the Legion's Landing, which this is one of the cards I do like because it does see play in Modern. However, again, this card is going for next to nothing and will probably even go down more. I'm assuming you're going to be able to pick these up for about $1 a piece once rotation really sets in. Now, story for another day, that might be a good buy if you want to sit on just loads of Legion's Landings for years to come. It's a hard card, I'm assuming, to reprint because of the flip aspect of the card. However, again, these are just in such high print run and it's a rare that I don't know the ability for this card to recover. Cards like History of Benalia, I'm actually not very positive on. They just don't seem to have that kind of oomph in Modern. They're not just they're not playable at the moment in Modern for just this 2-for-1 type card that just leads back to 2/2 white knight creature tokens. There's just better cards. People would even argue like Lingering Souls is more impactful than a card like History of Benalia. So I haven't seen even the token list running this because the 3-drop slot is really competitive with other cards, and this one's just going to fall the wayside. Not like a particularly card that you would see in like commander decks and casual decks either. So I'm writing History of Benalia off as just kind of a fail of a card to maintain any sort of value. The Conclave Tribunal is probably one of the better things from this particular set. A lot of the lists that are coming out of Eldraine, a bunch of them are using Conclave Tribunals. It does seem like Conclave Tribunal being able to be ramped through the Convoke mechanic is pretty decent in those type of formats. So I do like Conclave Tribunal as well. In EDH does run a decent amount of them. So this is one of the, but again, it's an uncommon, so you can't bank on the value from uncommon. With the sideboard, Tocatli Honor Guard does see play in various Modern decks. However, it's going to be a while before this card can recover. And the Remorseful Cleric is also a sideboard card in Spirits, which is gaining some steam on the modern scene. But overall, this is just a dismal amount of value. You're looking at maybe, out of cards that have any sort of liquid value, maybe $5 worth of cards in the White Weenie. And if we're looking specifically for standard for cards that survive post-rotation, this one's absolutely dismal, with a Conclave Tribunal being the only card that has any sort of relevance post-rotation. All of these cards rotate out. This deck just completely gets crushed by rotation with nothing, no cards at all that survive into rotation. Lightning Aggro is a little bit better for standard rotation. Standard rotation gets hurt the most because they lose both these cards, Lightning Strike and Wizard's Lightning, which makes most of the red decks go back to more of a creature-based damage strategy rather than this kind of half-siege strategy. This we even call this burn in standard because it did use, now with Skewer the Critics, it had the triple bolt type cards, and then shock it ran very similar to more of the modern burn style than you would think of an old school red deck wins, where you use more of a creatures to push through damage and then back them up with spells. But the red deck does have at least a little more rotation proof cards that will continue to be relevant. Cards like Experimental Frenzy as a 2 of, I think are it's pretty good. This card could have been a rare that could have been worth a lot, because we typically do see decks, not even just mono red decks, that run this card as a 4 of. It's a cutesy card in Commander. There are plenty of Commander decks that run it. And so this one does have some post-rotation value. The other one is the Runaway Steamkin. Runaway Steamkin is 100% going to see play post-rotation standard. There will be a red deck that wants to run it. Possibly some sort of even elemental type strategy may want it in the future. So I wouldn't discount Runaway Steamkin. If I'm a betting man, I am. This is going to be still a mainstay of the next rotation for the various red aggro-based strategies. However, a lot of the value cannot be sustained just by Runaway Steamkin and Experimental Frenzy. Even though Wizards Lightning does see modern play, it's just too many. It comes from Dominaria, which is one of the most open sets of all time. Lava Coil is also a good one, except for Lava Coil was in 2 decks this time around, so there's just too much supply of the Lava Coil. And many of these other cards just don't see enough play outside of this standard rotating format to have any sort of equity post-rotation. Golgari mid-range is a little bit better just because it has a shockland in it, so we do have the shockland in the form of Overgrown Tomb, which is good for it, but I mean, this probably should have been a 2 and a 1 rather than the 2 Woodland Cemeteries. It could have banked on the Overgrown Tomb, and this would have been a product that would be able to continue to sell, I would say, or at least people break them down if they get them for cheap enough, because the value for Overgrown Tomb would be significant enough and have significant enough demand to be cracking these. But you're going to find the same sort of problem with this deck that we've seen with the rest of the decks. Is just not enough cards that are impactful enough in other formats. The cards like the Jadelight Ranger, which held the bulk of the value, which were $9 when this set came out, are all the way down to $1 now. Ravenous Chupacabra just had too many printings. This is an all-star in like a lot of the EDH type decks. However, this was also in the Masters 25. Fine Finality is the card that does survive rotation. I do think this is going to be a player in the post-rotation, but one of the problems with Fine Finality is it just has a lot of competition for this sort of reanimation type strategy to bring cards back from your graveyard to your hand. We have Command the Dreadhorde. We have plenty of other ways that are absolutely competing with Fine Finality. Also, these Planeswalker in the form of Vraska's Relic Seeker rotates, and again, there's just nothing here that is really exciting for this deck to hold any sort of value long term. Arcane Tempo did look like it was the diamond in the rough for this particular Challenger deck release. However, with the banning of Faithless Looting, we've seen Arclight Phoenix crash down to the $13 mark. I don't know where I'll start pulling the trigger on Arclight Phoenix. I think that one of the other reasons too is that post-rotation in standard Arclight Phoenix gets a lot worse. There's not a lot of cards that actually enable Arclight Phoenix with the Chart of Course and Torment or the Tormenting Voice that are rotating out, even cards like Opt that really enabled the Arclight Phoenix strategy. So this could even crash even more due to standard decks getting rid of it. There are plenty of Phoenix decks in standard still at this point. It's actually my go-to deck to grind with on Arena. But yeah, so with the double dipping of both modern and standard not playing it, this card could go back down to the $5 to $8 range. At that point, I do think it's a good pickup because I just think it will be a matter of time. It's not an if, it's a when. Arclight Phoenix will be good enough for modern. In fact, early Arclight Phoenix decks didn't even run Faithless Looting. We could definitely see those type of decks come back in modern that just use other discard or just other ways to get the Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard and then be able to cast it back. We might see some Burning Inquiry type decks for that. So anyway, this one also had the Niv-Mizzet Perun, which is popular in EDH, very popular in EDH, which is pretty good, but again, a rare out of the first set is something that has a harder time of going up in value than out of a second set or a third set or a core set for that matter. Again, not too much value here with the Lava Coils being in 2 decks and a 4 of in this deck, and the Sulfur Falls just being I think this is the printing that just really crashed the price of this. This is another card if it's very low. Like I think it's actually not too bad to start investing in Sulfur Falls because it is one of the cards that does see the most play out of these check lands in modern. I think like decks like Storm and Blue Moon and things like that do prefer these Sulfur Falls. They're pretty good lands in that slot for modern. Again, though, if you look down these lists, not a lot. So let's hurry and take a look back at the Challenger Decks 2018, which have actually aged. I think are going to age a little bit better because they did have some specifically more high impact cards in the various formats. So if we look over at Hazard Aggro, it has the Soulscar Mage that does see play in various modern decks. It also is very popular in various commander-based decks with be able to put the -1/-1 counters on creatures. There's a few decks like this, the Scorpion God, that like cards like this. We have the Hazard the Fervent that does see modern play every now and again, and we also do see the Chandra Torch of Defiance. Hazard's also a relatively popular card in EDH. Chandra Torch of Defiance is just a very, very popular casual card. It does see play from time to time in Modern, and it is, a powerhouse in EDH as well. It's a very good Planeswalker, one of the better Planeswalkers printed of all time, and I think that it has a good chance of going up in the near future. If we look down at the Vehicle Rush, it's the same thing. Vehicle Rush does have some cards that I think are going to age well, that do see plenty of play in the various formats, especially in EDH and in Modern. So the first being the Spire of Industry, which is still played in Affinity in Modern and is played in basically any commander deck that does use artifacts. We have Unclaimed Territory that sees play in Humans in Modern, as well as in various tribal-based decks in EDH. And it, again, just scattered throughout here are good cards like the Concealed Courtyards that will have. It's going to take years to recover, but these are cards that do, again, see play in Modern. And if we even look down at even the Second Sun Control, you can pick out cards that see more impact in EDH, like the Fumigates, like the Settle the Wreckages, that I think are going to, in Field of Ruin especially, that are going to age a lot better than the cards out of the 2019. Counter Surge has one of the most popular cards in the various formats in the form of Walking Ballista, as well as cards that I think are going to tend to be recovering with Rishkar Renegade. And this one, I believe, did not have lands that were, yes, it did have the Aether Hubs, but yeah, it did not have really lands that were, that was the problem with this particular one, is it skimped out on the lands. So this one's going to be, the Walking Ballista is just the one that's holding the value, but these are aging relatively okay, better than I thought they were going to be aging, but these ones did at least, I didn't think they'd get worse than the 2018 Challenger decks, but they did prove us wrong with the 2019 Challenger decks. So that's basically my reasonings for not liking these. I hope they change in the future. I've got these rotting on the shelf, and I'm sure everyone else has a bunch of these decks still rotting on the shelf. If you check over eBay, you can get these as cheap for an entire playset of them for $75. I think my cost from distributors is still the exact same. It's about $140 for 2 sets of Challenger decks. So, I mean, this person that's selling them for $75 after eBay fee is losing money if they actually got them from the distributors at that $140. So a little bit of plug for my Patreon. If you disagree with me, if you think these products are going to age well, hop on my Patreon, join my Patreon, and buy me out of Challenger decks. They're still very available from all the distributors. Or again, it's around that $140-ish is the price for a 2 sets of Challenger decks. I think I can still get 2018 Challenger decks for that price, and I would not be surprised if I see them blow them out around Christmas time when all the distributors are trying to free up a lot of equity, and it's just a race to try to get those Christmas sales. So Q4 is very, very important. It's even the time for hobby stores and even distributors. They probably get, they call it Black Friday for a reason. It's when you finally get out of the red, and so there's going to be a lot of these type of dead products. I think are going to be blown out for next to nothing. So same thing can be had on Amazon. I see the price of Amazon being around $84. That is a lot cheaper than they were going for the longest time. Again, I know this product was meant for just that quick standard season, but yep, that's just the reality of things. Anyway, that's an overview. I hope you enjoyed this video of the Challenger decks. If you have any disagreements, of course, in the comment section below. This has been a rogue audit, where we audit kind of the topics and maybe card picks that I've picked in the past. The next one will be surrounding Ultimate Masters, another product that I don't think necessarily failed, but I think stayed true to exactly where I said that Ultimate Masters would go. The supply was just too high. Anyway, this has been Kevin with the Rogue Market. Thanks for watching.